If you want to listen to this episode or any of our episodes ad-free, you can do that now. Head on over to Patreon. Click on the ad-free level. You get all of our bonus shows that you've been hearing so much about. Plus, every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you can listen to this episode or any of our other episodes at the same time, ad-free, over on Patreon. Today we are joined by Peggy Tanous from RHOC. Does everyone remember Peggy? Not Peggy Sulahian, who we highlighted a few weeks ago. The other Peggy. Who would have thought there'd be so many Peggys? We'll actually talk about that in the RHOC. So we are highlighting this conversation with Peggy Tanous here today. I still want to hear from everyone. Are you guys loving this season of RHOC? And how do you feel about Heather and how do you feel about Shannon? Because everyone seems to feel one way about Shannon and everyone seems very, very mixed about Heather Dubrow. So I want to hear from you guys. And also, I don't know, I think as I highlight these episodes, which are kind of MIA on the back feed, pay attention because, I don't know, I think I've come a long way. I cringe when I listen to myself in some of these back episodes, but I'm just overly critical. I just think, look, we've evolved, but I don't know, it's kind of like vintage, and everyone seems to love this idea. So, by the way, we don't do this every Friday, just certain Fridays, and it's the holidays. So, check out this interview with Peggy Tanous from RHOC, and is everyone Googling her right now, or do you remember her? Wonderful, sweet woman. Let me know what you think. Enjoy. It's RHOC time, and here's Miss Peggy Tanous. Hey guys, this is David. Welcome back behind the velvet rope. How is everybody doing? Well, we are here joined from 3,000 miles away with the one and only Peggy Tanous, one of the Real Housewives of Orange County. How are you, Peggy?
Hey, David. Great to be on with you. And I have to say, you're on with the original Peggy because there ended up being two of us.
Well, it's really funny you say that because when my engineering team was trying to connect with you today, because I have already spoken to Peggy Sulahian, they were like, is this her information? And I'm like, no, that's a different Peggy. And they're like, but you gave us this information. I'm like, I did. That was like last week. This is this week. It really was a few weeks ago. But you are the original Peggy.
I am the original Peggy. And it's actually really funny because when Peggy Sulahian did come on to the show, I was talking with production about possibly coming back. And so when we had talked about it, when I left the show, I kind of was just like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm out of here. And I didn't really continue on with my friendships on there that strongly. And, so then several years go by and, we're at a Bravo party and I'm talking with one of the producers and he was like, oh my God, you're so funny. I haven't talked to you in so long. Like maybe you should think about coming back on. So long story short, we had a meeting and it was like, well, you didn't really, you're not like best of friends with anyone anymore. So it wouldn't really make sense to have you because I didn't want to come on as a full-time housewife again. So I said I would consider coming on as a friend. And he was like, well, it wouldn't really make sense to come on as a friend yet because you haven't really been talking to the girls a lot. So he's like, why don't you just come in and film a little bit and see how you feel, and then we can kind of take it from there. And so Lydia and I are friends, and Lydia is also friends with Peggy, the other Peggy. And so one day they had called me, or Lydia had called me, and she's like, okay, you're on camera. And I was like, what? And I'm just going with it because I'm like, well, maybe they forgot to call me and tell me that I'm filming them today. And so then she hangs up, and then she texts me. She's like, oh, my God, I called the wrong Peggy. And I was like, wait, the new girl's name is Peggy? And she's like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, the new girl's name is Peggy. I'm like, what a trip.
That is so funny. So wait, she meant to call Peggy Sulahian to film?
She meant to call Peggy Sulahian. So that, because I had told her, because Lydia and I stayed in touch, and even though we didn't, we weren't on this same season, we had met and we became friendly. And so I had told her, like, hey, I'm thinking about, coming back on and doing some stuff. And so she already knew that. And then when they said, oh, call Peggy, she was assuming it was me. So then it was funny because then about 2 weeks later, they had a big party. She and her husband threw a party for their magazine, Nobleman. And so we were there and they were filming. And that's when I first met Peggy Sulahian, who I think is very sweet. And there was a great scene that they filmed, but they didn't end up airing it, which I was like, oh, they should have aired this because it was so great. Because when I first met her, I was like, oh, you're Peggy too. Okay, well, I'm the original Peggy. And it was this very funny scene, but
that would have been so funny.
Yeah. So some fun little throwback information for you.
Seriously, that would have been hilarious. And is Lydia, I mean, I was going to bring this up later, but is Lydia like the mayor of the OC because Peggy knows her? Yeah, like I know Emily Simpson speaks to her. I spoke to Lynn Curtin. Like it just seems like everyone loves Lydia, and Lydia keeps in touch with like a lot of people. I don't know if I'd say she's a mayor, but I think Lydia's just got a real good heart and she's real. And I think that's what people like about her. So a lot of the girls have met her through other girls. I think I originally met her. I don't remember how I originally met Lydia, but maybe through Gretchen or some event because we all, frequent the same charity events and parties and stuff around here. So I don't remember how I first met her, but I think once you meet her, she's just so, easy to talk to and she's real. You feel like it's not a fake friendship. So she's definitely, and I kind of feel like I'm like that too, though. Like I get along with everybody and I'm friends with everybody. And that's how I was the season that I was on. I didn't really have issues with, the person I had issues with was my real friend. So, go figure. And who would you say you had the most issues with, like during your season?
Well, it was Alexis.
Alexis,
I came on as her,
right?
Yeah, I came on as her. We were really friends. We had been friends, gosh, for probably 5 years or more before we even filmed, and we had our kids like one day apart, and we used to hang out, as families, and there was a whole group of us that would hang out that all had kids the same age. And then when she had gotten on the show, going into the next season, into season 6, she was like, oh my God, they're casting. I think you should come on. And I had been in TV my whole life. And I was like, oh God, no, I do like real TV because, reality wasn't super big. It was getting big, but it wasn't like it is now. And so she kind of convinced me to go on the show, but then she never knew at that point that Jim and I had gone out. So she was like, yeah, come on. But then I think she must have gone home, said something to Jim, and then he freaked out thinking, oh my God, if Peggy comes on, I'm going to have to tell Alexis that we had gone out. And so then when I went through the whole process, she changed her mind because he was saying, it'll ruin your friendship, but he wasn't telling her why. And so then she told me, oh, they're not casting. And then I get a phone call from somebody like, hey, I just gave your name and they are casting. And I'm like, that's really weird. So then I asked her, like, why are you telling me they're not casting and now they're calling me? And she's like, see, they're already trying to cause drama. And it just turned into this big stupid thing. So really, that was my biggest issue, was just with her because of all that stuff that people didn't see behind the scenes.
Interesting. Yeah, I always said, like, if I was ever on the show and I had like a real friend, I would never want them on the show. That's just me. You know what I mean? Like a surface friend, sure. But like for me, it would be like, I don't know. I feel like every time someone brings like a real life friend on the show, something always goes wrong. Not even DOC, just like every franchise.
Well, I think, yes, I agree. But I also think it depends on the person. If she was, more secure about maybe her relationship or just her as a person, she wouldn't have let that bother her, I feel like, and it wouldn't have changed things, or we could have gotten past it. But I also think, as far as other franchises, look at Melissa and Teresa Giudice and Melissa Gorga from Jersey. They're great now, but they've had several issues. And I think it's because production is really good at, making that happen. They want the conflict because they need that. That's what reality TV thrives on. And so even though there may not be a conflict, and if somebody comes on with a real friend or a family member and there are no conflicts, they somehow figure out a way to make somebody go, oh gosh, maybe she did say that, that way. and they put it in your head. So then it turns into something.
Right. And like, how do they do that? Like, they'll come to you and be like, did you hear what Alexis said? Like, is it that blatant, so to speak?
Well, from my own experience, I just, remember like it would be just like a little drop in the air. Like it would be like, oh, you're speaking so nice of this person, but they don't speak so nice of you. And then you're like, oh, they don't? Well, what do you mean? Oh, no, nothing. But then it's in your head. So then you're like, oh, well, I should reevaluate this. Or then you want to go confront the person. So it's just little things like that.
That's interesting. Right. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
enough to just get you to second guess a lot of things, right?
Of course, you could second guess the friendship, second guess your family member. You could then, gosh, we're especially during this quarantine time, everyone's like in their head a lot more. So, you have all the calm time and quiet time. And so if somebody dropped a hint or something in your head, you could turn into they say don't turn molehills into mountains. Well, you could definitely turn something into a mountain if you were, given one little tidbit of information to make you question it.
Completely. And so your friendship with Alexis, she was really the one who came to you. Was she like, what did you think of her getting cast in the first place? Like, even before you were involved in the show, I mean, was she like excited about being cast? Was she like, I can't believe I'm going to do this? Like, do you remember that time, like before you were involved and she got the show?
Well, she didn't tell any of us, which was really interesting. And I wouldn't have thought, that she never showed any interest in being on TV. So none of us, it took all of us kind of by surprise. But she just sent out this email to like all her friends when she found out that she was going to be on, and just said, oh, the cat's out of the bag, I'm going to be on Housewives. And we were all like, oh my God, no way. That's great. If that's what you want to do. We just didn't know you were doing that. But and a lot of it's because you can't tell people.
Right.
And so, but I definitely was happy for her if that's what she wanted to do. I was just worried, like, well, do you know what you're getting yourself into?
Right.
But then, like I said, I didn't really watch a lot of reality TV at all. So when she did do it and I watched her season, and I even had filmed with her a few times on it, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. It seems like it's, not so crazy. I mean, I think everyone's view of reality is when I think it was it Big Brother or one of those shows that we read, the very first reality show where they actually put the cameras up in your house. It's not like that. They don't put cameras up in your house. It's not like the cameras are rolling 24/7. I mean, we had a set schedule. It was actually pretty easy. It was like, okay, you're going to film 4 days a week and we'll tell you what days. And, they talk to you ahead of time. What do you have going on this week? Oh, you're going to a doctor appointment. Okay, we want to go with you. Oh, you're doing a lunch with that person. Okay, we want to go with you. So it wasn't,
right.
I was like, oh, this isn't bad. But I think when people think back to the days of, I think it was, like I said, Big Brother or whatever, one of those, where they have the camera and it's 24/7. And it's like, you can't get away from the camera. Like every room you go in, it's not that. So, I think for me, that's what kind of made me go, oh, well, gosh, I've taken time off from my modeling and hosting and all the stuff that I normally do to have my kids. Maybe this isn't so bad to do and kind of get me back into that.
That makes sense. And when Alexis first brought you the idea, were you like, oh, okay, or were you just like, oh God, reality TV is definitely not for me, like, I guess you hadn't really watched a lot of the other seasons of the OC and seen some of the drama. Although I feel like the drama back then in the first few seasons wasn't, like you said, it wasn't really what Housewives is today, so to speak, as far as drama goes.
It's insane now. Like now it's like, and that's why when I had met with the producers and it was 2012, so 4 years ago. It was right when Peggy came on, and like I said, and I remember when I did go film a few times, and even though they didn't air any of the footage, I was like, oh my God, this is just too crazy now. Like that definitely made me realize, okay, I'm fine not coming back into this. It's okay, because it's at a whole new level now. Like it's just totally different now. But no, when
it really is.
I was like, nah, that's not really for me. I'll stick with, regular stuff. And then she was like, no, it would be fun. And we could, film all these things together. And, we could even come up with our own storylines, this, that, and the other. And so she kind of, I don't want to say she convinced me, but she kind of did. Like, she was just like, no, this would be fun. So after talking to her for probably like an hour, I was like, well, I don't know. It doesn't sound so bad. I'm like, let me talk to my husband and let me think about it, and I'll call you in a couple days. But then when I called her back in a couple days, that's when she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. They're not casting after all. And I think that was because she had gone home and talked to Jim and said, oh, I talked to Peggy. I'm going to get her. I'm going to try and get her on. And he probably freaked out and said, you don't want to do that. It's not good for friendships, this, that, and the other. So it must have, convinced her to change her mind. Because then she was like, oh, they're not casting. So then when another friend referred me, and then they called me and I met with them, and then they came to our house, and then it just started going. And then, we got the call like, yes, we want you guys on there. She didn't seem that excited about it for me coming on. And I was like, well, that's really weird because, a couple months ago, she was the one telling me like, oh, come on. And then what was even worse was then Jim didn't tell her until a week before we started filming, hey, I got to tell you something. Long time ago, Peggy and I had gone out, and that was the first time she knew. So then the next week we start filming, and I remember the producers are like, you guys have been friends for so long. There seems like this weirdness between you. And we just, neither one of us said anything because it's like that wasn't our reality at the time, so we didn't bring it up. But it was, very strange because it's like she was very upset and didn't want it. She was like, I'm not talking to you about this, and don't bring it up on camera, and that's it. And so, yeah, it was a very strange time for us.
That's interesting.
I wish her well. I'm really happy for her now that I think it's, probably a good thing that they're divorced. I mean, I'm sure divorce is horrible, and I feel bad for her and the family and them. But I think it seems like she's really, really happy now and has a new guy, and I wish her well. And, I haven't seen her in a long time, but probably the last time I saw her was, 3 or 4 years ago. And, we're very cordial with each other, but there just isn't a friendship anymore.
I mean, what do you think Jim had any ulterior motives other than, in telling her don't get Peggy on this, other than this might ruin your friendship? Like, do you think it was just that simple, or did he have any other ulterior motives?
I have no idea. I mean, all I know is somebody calls me and talks to me for an hour, convinced me to do something. And then when I call them back 3 days later and say, okay, fine, give my name, and they're saying, oh, sorry, that's not on the table anymore. The only thing I can come up with is that he was fearful that I would get it, and then he'd have to tell her the truth. So whatever he said, I have no idea, but he must have said things to make her believe that she shouldn't, ask me to come on now.
Wow. And then, in a way, and then, I mean, I wonder, like, did anyone say to production, like, oh, we were thinking of Peggy, and now, because in a way, I would think if they did, that probably helped your case to actually get on, to tell you the truth, if that makes any sense.
Well, I told them when they called me, I was like, that's weird that you guys are casting, because Alexis and I are really good friends, and she had mentioned me meeting with you guys, but now she's telling me that you're not. And so, of course, they probably loved that. Like, oh, what? She is? Why? But they didn't know why.
They probably loved it. They probably loved that. I mean, not that that's why you got cast. You got cast for yourself and all the other things, but still, they probably absolutely loved that. I mean, even before the show, like before you were on it, like, did you see a lot of strange stuff, like between Alexis and Jim? Like, I mean, you must not be shocked that they're divorced. Like, did it seem like they had a perfect marriage back then?
It wasn't that I never really saw anything strange. It was just more, in my opinion, I just felt like, he's a very strong personality. And I felt like it was I guess to me, it was a very controlling thing, but I don't think that she minded that, because I think that she liked being, like, she doted on him, and she liked being the woman that took care of the household and cooked the meals every day. And, she was okay with that. Whereas me, like, my husband's an amazing chef, and he actually loves cooking. And it's great during this quarantine, because I'm like, okay, what are you cooking for us? And so we both cook, but he's a better cook than me. So I'm like, have no problem. Like, I don't feel like cooking, you're cooking. But some people
they like their roles and they feel like they're very old-fashioned roles, perhaps, and they're okay with that, you know?
That makes sense. And then, I mean, do you think that was the main gist of the problems, like, between you and Alexis, like, on the show? You know what I mean? Like, she just never got over the fact of, like, I kind of didn't want you on the show, and here you are, and, like, you didn't tell me you were coming on. Like, was that kind of the overshadowing of the whole season between the two of you?
No, I think the whole problem was that she didn't know that, you know, when I met her and we started becoming friends, I had told Jim, I pulled him aside one time when we were all out and I said, hey, do you think that, you know, one of us should tell Alexis that we had gone out? Because I said, it's a small town and I would never want her to find out and be like upset that one of us didn't tell her. And he got super angry at me and was like, mind your own effing business. This is my marriage. And she and I have an agreement that we don't talk about our past. And so I was like, okay, it's your marriage. I'm not going to, pry with the sanctity of marriage. Like, whatever, you can tell her if you want to, but I won't say anything. So I think, as a friend, she felt betrayed by me. And so, like I told you, the week before filming, he had to tell her. He took her to their counselor, their marriage counselor, and he said, listen, I have something to tell you. So, for her, I could only imagine, we've never talked about it because she didn't want to, but I can only imagine being on a TV show and knowing that one of your best friends is now going to be on there, and now your husband's telling you, oh, hey, by the way, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, however long it was, I had gone out with this girl. She's like, what? Like, what the hell? So, and then there's probably that fear of, then there was probably a fear the whole season of like, oh, is she going to bring this up? Is it going to become something on camera? But neither one of us did. So it didn't become an issue. What happened was at the very end of the season, she went on to Andy Cohen. And I think an old friend of ours that lives in Orange County, I think he called in and just said like, oh, what do you think of, Peggy and Jim dating way back when? And she acted like she had known forever. But, Andy was like, what? Like, how come none of us knew about this? And it became this crazy thing. So, I can only speculate, but for me, I think that was, I never, the only weirdness I felt was I felt bad. And I explained to her, like, listen, I wanted to tell you, but he asked me not to and said that it was your guys' business. So I just abided by that. And I just was sad that she couldn't, as a friend, just be like, okay, I see the position you were in. Like, this is so stupid. I'm married to him. This was like 8 years ago. It was nothing serious, like, and be done with it. But, that's not how it went down. So I think that was probably why she was, so upset that I was on there.
That makes sense. And right, like you said, probably holding her breath the whole season of like, if that came out on the show, it could have been like a major storyline. And she doesn't sound like she wanted that.
Well, and that's what they wanted to make season 7 all about. So when I started filming season 7, and I already had my contract and everything, and then we had to film at Vicky's party, but I hadn't signed my contract because I had my attorneys working on some of the financial part of it. And I remember them calling me saying, okay, will you please just come and film even though you haven't signed a contract? And when I went, and they were trying to make it all about that, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. If this is what season 7 is going to be, where you guys just hash up something from, 8-10 years ago, like, we're both married now. We both have kids. Like, this is just ridiculous. And so I was like, you know what? I quit. I'm done. I don't even want to do this. And then that
makes sense.
I had to like try and get out of my contract because I had signed a 5-year contract. So that was a whole other thing. But anyhow, anyways,
in a way, she should be. I know, like we went right into it. I wasn't even thinking we were going to go right into Alexis, but like in a way, and then we can move on. Like, she should be happy that you didn't, like, in a way, you did a solid in the sense that you didn't bring it up on camera. You know what I mean? Like, if you could argue if someone were really thirsty for fame and to be a breakout thing for the show, you would have brought that up like day one.
Well,
so
and that's
she should be thrilled.
She was telling other cast members and people like, oh, I feel like Peggy's just trying to cause drama. She just wants fame, whatever. And so I I think I did say to her one night after far too many tequila shots, I think I said to her, you should be thankful. Like if I wanted to be so famous or I wanted like the spotlight, number one, I would have brought this up day one of filming and completely thrown you under the bus and completely caused drama. And then secondly, I would have continued on the show, which I quit. I backed out and quit and left the show. If I would have stayed on for season 7, who knows, what would have happened more with it. And then 3, it was like, yeah, I did. I totally never brought it up and was trying to always be nice about everything.
Wow. Yeah, that's how I see it. And you quit just mainly what? Because like the financials, like you guys couldn't work everything out. Was that the main reason?
The financials would have been worked out. That wasn't so much the issue. Orange County has always been, or at least in the past, it had always been, the women on Orange County had always been paid the least amount of all the franchises, which was crazy because we're the ones that started the whole, it had started in Orange County.
Totally.
And so because I came from the business, I was like, no, this is like, we've got to change this. And, so then I was happy to see season 7, season 8, the women started getting smart and started really saying, wait a minute, we're worth much more. And look at these other franchises. They're getting paid way more. We need to step up the pay. So it wasn't the financials for me. It was more, I had postpartum depression, which, I showed that on the show, and I had anxiety. I still get it. And my kids were so little. And I just, I was a different person. If I was to be on there now, I'm much stronger. I'm older. I'm like, it'd be a piece of cake. But at the time, I really was more about protecting my family. And so going into season 7, when I realized it was going to be the whole Peggy, Jim, Alexis show, I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to do this. I don't want my kids, involved. I don't want, my husband. And it just wasn't, to me, it just wasn't. I knew that it would make me so anxious and probably go back into depression. So I just didn't, I didn't want to take a chance at that.
That makes
now,
sense.
In retrospect, if I look back, I'm like, oh, I should have grown some balls and just, rode through it. It probably would have been fine. But at the end of the day, it's truly not me. I love TV and I'll always be involved in it. But for me, it's, especially now with what we're dealing with this coronavirus, I feel like, my calling is my hosting, which I do, and I'm good at it. And, I had a radio show and I'm probably starting another radio show. And I just feel like it was, for me, I have a few shows that I've, actually I sold 2 of them and then they didn't end up getting picked up. And now I'm talking to different production companies about revamping them. And it's going to be something more positive and something on a network that, doesn't care about the drama, that it's going to be more, because you can have drama, if you watch any of the shows, like Cake Boss, for instance, oh my God, the cake, oh my God, it got burned, or oh my God, like that's drama, but it's not drama that is digging into people's lives and like harming them, and that was my whole thing. I don't want to be in a situation where, someone's going to try and hurt me, mentally and emotionally because of something in the past or something I said to another cast member or whatever the case. It just wasn't, it just wasn't for me.
That makes sense. And that's the thing. It's like your whole life being played out on TV for everyone to judge. It's great. I get it. And I'm, off the record, like I'm not going to mention names, but like, just knowing a lot of housewives and being friendly with a lot of them, there's a lot of them that have said to me like over the years, like, I'd love to be on TV, and this is definitely not the vehicle that I would have chose or am currently enjoying, but, here we are. So I get it. Like you said, like there's a lot of other ways to be on TV, where you have the drama. It's just not about your actual life. So that makes sense.
Well, and I think the longer you're on, it also becomes about the paycheck. I mean, for me, I felt like if I quit now, the money's not that great. So I might as well just, it doesn't make a difference. So I might as well just do it now, like cut the cord now. But if I was to stay, the longer you're on, the more opportunities come to you, the more money comes. And so I think, I'm friends with Vicki and I'm friends with almost all the girls still, but I think that I remember reading something that Vicki had said that she felt like she was really done. Maybe it was season 13. I think it was season 13. She felt like she was really done.
But then she still came back, and it was like, I think it becomes like addicting because then the money's so good. You're like, well, gosh, it would be stupid to give up this money that I can put away for my future. So I think then it kind of just becomes, where you have to stay.
I
think
have talked about this so much. I would totally agree with you. Like season 1 is nothing. Season 1 costs you money. Season 2, is arguable. It costs you some money. Season 3 is when you start to maybe be okay, financially. Right. And then like 4 on is when you maybe see money. And then, right, season 10, you're making huge money. Like you kind of take a breath and sleep on it, and you're probably like, well, that was miserable, but like, how can I turn down $1 million or over or close there too? Is it really that bad? I would totally agree with you.
Well, and I think even recently, Tamra, I read somewhere Tamra was talking about, not coming back this year. And I think she had even said, I was actually praying that they would call and say, you're not coming back. Because she said, I knew that if they said that they wanted me back, I couldn't turn it down. I don't know if that's the exact word but however she'd said it. And so I get that. It's like it's like you're on so long and the money just keeps getting better and so you don't want to turn it down. But then if they call and say, well, you're not going to come back, but you can come back for 3 episodes, then that's why she was like, forget it, I'm not going to do it. But if they were like, oh, you're going to come on for season, then it's like too hard to turn that down.
And the rumor is, that they offered her $60,000 to come on for 3 episodes. That's the rumor.
Yeah,
it's not like an insider. It's the rumor that's like printed everywhere. I don't know if it's true, but I couldn't imagine going on for 3 episodes for that after making a real salary. So, and you're like originally from the OC, like you grew up there, or how'd you end up there?
Yeah, I think I was I think when I was on, I was the only girl originally from here. I was born and raised here.
Wow, like a true OC original.
True OC girl, absolutely.
And then, I found it like interesting too. Like you were on, I know it was a long time ago. You could say this about a lot of relationships, but like, so you were on, like speaking of Vicki, like you were on, I think it's interesting that you were on with all these women that their lives, as far as their romantic lives, are so different now. Like, did you think like Vicki and Don were well matched back then, or does that shock you that they're not together, or you were just like, well, this is obvious?
Well, no, because I was in the middle of that. Like in season 6, I remember we filmed going out to Temecula to go wine tasting, and she was kind of like telling Tamra and I like, things with Dawn are probably not going to, and I think, like I don't know if she had met Brooks yet, and then very short after that, then, they separated, and then she was dating Brooks, and then, we met Brooks, and he came here for dinner one night, and we had dinner here, and, wasn't on camera. This was when we were done filming. But I think a lot of times with the relationships, I don't know necessarily, people are always like, oh, reality TV is like the curse for relationships. But I feel like there had to have been something in the relationship before in order for that to make the relationship end. I don't think it's necessarily the show that makes it end. A lot of times it's because the women become so independent, they realize, oh, I don't need this person. And maybe there were a lot of things about this person I didn't like.
I would agree with that. Right. Like you look at someone like, we don't know them for sure, but I just think you can tell, you look at like a Kyle Richards and Mauricio, like they look so in love. They seem so in love. I think, I don't think there's ever been a relationship on reality, at least not on Housewives for me, that's ended where I've been like, well, that's shocking. I agree with you. You get independence and money and you're just like, I have my own things going on, and we had a lot of issues before, and now I can leave if I'm not in love. So I would agree with that.
And some people, it actually is a reality check. Like they watch themselves back because the camera's going to lie. So when the camera is filming, you don't know what's going to be aired, and you don't know how it's going to be edited and what's going to happen. But a lot of times I would imagine that these women, like all of a sudden, like, oh, I didn't realize he talked to me that way, or, oh, I didn't realize that, he did that, or that he was checking out that girl, or, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that has a big play in it as well.
Did your family, like you said, you spoke to your husband, like, did they not want you to do the show, or they were just like, okay, or did they have reservations? And did you have reservations too, other than the Alexis thing?
It's funny because my husband was the one that kind of convinced me. Like, I remember after I had hung up with Alexis that day and she had spoken to me for like an hour and, saying, oh my God, these are the reasons you should do it and it would be so much fun and this, that, and the other. I remember going home and saying, what do you think? Like, Alexis called me today and I was like, I don't really think I want to do reality. And he's like, well, I know you've had a really tough time the last couple of years with the depression and, the postpartum. And he goes, this might be a really good avenue to kind of get you back into the business because I know you miss your work and it would kind of get you back into it and get you kind of out of your funk, so to speak. So he was the one that actually encouraged me. But he doesn't, it's so funny because he has no filter and he is like so good for TV, but he doesn't like TV. And so he doesn't have any desire. We had a couple opportunities with a few different things. We were asked to do couples boot camp or whatever that show. And we turned that down. And there was something recently that they asked us to do. And he was like, I have no desire to be on camera. He's like, you can do whatever you want. He's like, but I don't want to be a part of it. So he's not really into the whole thing.
That makes sense. And then what about, because you mentioned Brooks, like, did you have any initial like gut reaction? Like, this is a bad guy, the same way Tamra did?
I thought he was very charming. He had that Southern charm thing going, but I did feel like there was like this, like intuition, like something just doesn't seem right though, So
like Dirty John-ish, like too good to be true.
Yeah, and I worried that, it's when a guy is like so, what's the word I want to use? They're willing to like, oh, I'll do anything for you type of thing. And I felt like he didn't have his own life. And it was like, okay, you're too quick to want to jump into all of Vicki's life. And I felt like, is that because of the camera? Like, I felt like maybe he wanted to become somebody because of the camera, or he wanted to all of a sudden have his, like he wanted his 15 minutes. I don't know. Who knows? Now I know you talked to Lynn. Did she tell you about our show the show that I developed and we've been doing?
Yeah, she was getting in. Do you want to talk about? I love Lynn. First of all, I'm gonna have to hang out with you when I'm coming to the OC. Hopefully in July, if we're allowed to travel.
Yeah, we definitely have to hang out. That'd be so fun.
We're gonna have to get drinks. I mean, if at all, I think by July we'll be okay. I'm hoping.
I would hope so, or we're all going to go cuckoo.
Seriously.
No.
So do you want to talk about that show with Lynn?
Well, so I developed the show that's a live show, and I named it the Ex-Housewives Uncensored. And the reason that I, came up with it is I was like, God, actually I'd gone to, I'm friends with Patty Stanger, and I'd gone to her show. She did a show with Jeff Lewis, who I'm now friends with Jeff, and I love, and I've been on his podcast a few times, and he mentioned maybe having me start doing some co-hosting with him on his podcast. And so anyways, I went to their live show and I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. And I go, I need to do this. I need to do this with Housewives. And so I developed it and named it and started getting the girls involved. And so Lynn and Lizzie, who I'm great friends with both of them and love them both dearly, they came on and did the first two with me. And then we had the shutdown of society. And so now when we resume again to society, I have been talking to other housewives, ex-housewives from other franchises. And my goal is to take it on the road and start getting, out to other areas other than California and bring on other women from other franchises and cities and stuff.
Totally. You and I need to talk offline because, well, first of all, there's like, so I go to all these things. Like I saw when you guys were having this in the OC, and this was even before I knew Lynn, and I was like, oh, the timing, because I travel all around for this stuff just for this show. So there's this thing like Celebrity Housewives, like they've been doing this for years, and it makes, it's successful, like where they have like 3 or 4 housewives that are currently on Bravo, really exactly what you just described, and then there's a host, like, and I've been in talks with them to like maybe host some of them. But I have been saying for years, this concept needs to be done with like ex-housewives because I don't know. I think personally, the fans, well, at least for me, like they like the deep dives, and the ex-housewives really are less accessible than the housewives. Like you take like a Teresa Giudice, she's great, but she does appearances all day, every day. So if you really want to meet Teresa somehow or hear something, you have like 15,000 different options throughout the year. You don't have, if you really want to do a deep dive, there is no real mass booking of like a Lynn or a Peggy, but I do think there's the desire out there for that. So you and I should speak offline because I know all these ex-housewives, and if you need someone to, can't talk about it. I'm in the mix to host something else with Housewives, but it's not a conflict or anything. But just to sell my own services, if you like, I don't know the format you guys had, like if you had a host, but that's how Celebrity Housewives work. Where like someone asked the question.
Celebrity Housewives, I think Teresa started it, and I know I'm friends with Kelly as well, Kelly Dodd, and she does a bunch of their shows, and so it's the same concept, but the difference is theirs are the current girls, and ours are just like the top.
Exactly. That's why I think it's such a great idea, because there's this desire for the ex-housewives. Like, I just think it's like, why not? But yeah, Teresa started it with like her PR person, and like Kelly does a lot of them. And I was with Kelly in Florida when they did one over this past December, and it's a great idea to bring all these ex-housewives out that I think people want to hear from, because people know less about them now. You know, it's like 5 years, 10 years, 4 years later, whatever respective season you're on. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it is, and it's a lot of fun. And, you know, I think for Orange County, the tough thing, well, actually all of Southern California, is there's so much going on though here. Like every night, you know, when we're not on quarantine, every night there is literally something to do, something going on, some event, some party, some grand opening, something, just like New York City. So what my goal is to kind of now take it to smaller areas that don't have access to any of us housewives, or don't have access to these kinds of events. So I know Jeff had just done in Fresno, and Fresno was like a great area. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, parts of Arizona, and taking it, you know, on the Midwest side, like Ohio, and, you know, outside of Chicago, that kind of thing. So
totally. Because like I travel. No, I mean, that is totally what it is. You know what I mean? Because like, I go to all these small little cities in, you know, the middle of the country, and for these events, I'm telling you, that's a smart idea. They go crazy in these smaller cities. Like, it's just, you know, like Countess Luann was telling me, like when she goes to Oklahoma, she can't even like cross the street. Like, it's like, there's just they don't have access to it there. So I think that's a really smart idea.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
And it's a great thing.
So
yeah, but that. What else do I want to talk about?
Now that you have me in the hot seat, what else do you want to know?
Seriously. Okay, so Vicki and Don, Brooks, I mean, what was your thought on the whole like Brooks faking cancer thing and Vicki knowing, you know, that was the storyline on the show? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
You know, I didn't really watch a lot of it or pay attention to a lot of that, but it was, you know, I don't really know what went down with that. I feel, I mean, it's if he was doing that for, you know, a storyline or to be relevant or whatever the case, it's disgusting. I mean, my dad passed 2 years ago from cancer, and my mom just had breast cancer in December. So, you know, with me, it's a very touchy subject, and I think in Vicki's defense, I don't know the whole story, but I could see it where maybe she had no idea until later. And at that point, you know, it's like if you've already gone along with it not knowing, you almost have to stay doing that to be supportive of that person. I don't know. The whole thing was, crazy.
It was crazy. What about Gretchen? Like, you had like a minor fight with Gretchen for a minute on the show. Nothing major, but like, what were your thoughts on Gretchen back then and now?
I know Gretchen, and we're good friends. And, you know, I went to a baby shower, and we just saw each other right before everything got closed. We all celebrated Lizzie's birthday together. I was there. Lydia was there. Lynn was there. Gretchen's great. And Gretchen and I probably would have been like best of friends on the show. But what happened is, because she was good friends with Alexis kind of had already like tainted my name to her. But we never really had issues on the show. She, you know, I think there was one thing that, excuse me 1 second, honey, I'm on a
sure.
call. One of my daughters ran in.
It happens. I mean, you're quarantining at home with the whole family. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's my daughter's running in going, you didn't remind me I was supposed to go on a call for school. And I'm like, you were supposed to set an alarm on Google.
That's funny.
Okay. We got real life going on here, folks.
Seriously.
So,
well, I'm quarantined by myself, so no one's going to sneak in my room.
Oh my gosh, is that hard? I mean, it's just, on some degree, it's probably nice because you don't have people that are like constantly, you know, needing things from you, but then it must be hard as well.
Yeah, like it's hard. It's funny. I have a lot of friends that are quarantined at home, and they're like, you have no idea how lucky you are to be alone. And then like I was talking to Lynn, and Lynn was like, are we going to have a glass of wine on Zoom tonight? Because I'm bored. And I'm like, yeah, me too. So it's like, you know what it is? It's like, I hate to say it because like this, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like callous, but like it's easier now, you know, 5 weeks in, it's easier. I mean, it's still horrible and I would like to go live my life. And I hope that, you know, just for what's going on in the world, I really hope the numbers start coming down. I really try not to watch the news very often. I get enough of the news just by talking to people and getting the top line. Yeah, I mean, like,
I don't watch it either.
Like enough people will tell me, you know, every 3 days the top line of what's going on in New York. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, in the beginning, because I'm out every night, I travel around, I go to these like housewife events, I go to, so I'm like usually like in a different state, like 3 different states every week, you know, just for Bravo events, just for what I do. So in the beginning, I was like, people were calling me like, you of all people, how could you be handling this? You know, like you survive, you learn to adapt about your new life. So I feel like it's easier now, several weeks in. But yes, at first I was like, what? Like I'm all alone. And living in New York, a lot of people left New York. I mean, which I thought of in the beginning, you know, like they either went to the Hamptons or to like parents' house or like summer houses. So it was almost like
I probably would do that if I were there.
Yeah. But I mean, like I wanted to stay. And the positive is that I've been working like this more than I ever have. So like in a way, it's good for that. But yeah, being alone is a strange thing. But the friends I have are like, you don't have anyone interrupting you, to your point. So but that's understandable.
Yes, I'm now in the backyard to avoid being interrupted again.
Oh my God. Well, you still the sound is still really good. So Gretchen, right. You think you would have been friends with Gretchen. It's just that Alexis.
Well, we were friends and we were friends, but it just we weren't as friendly, you know, as I became really best of friends with Tamra on the show. And, you know, Micah and Eddie are the same age and they, you know, they're very similar. So 4 of us used to hang out at the time. But I think that if I would have met, I mean, I had met Gretchen before I ever came on the show, but if I would have reached out to her to let her know I was coming on the show and we would have talked and, you know, she would have heard my side, I guess you'd say, before Alexis had, you know, talked to her, then it might have been a little bit different. We might have been closer on the show. But now it's funny because now we're closer now that we're not on the show, you know? So
totally.
It's all good.
And then what about Tamra? Like, were you, like, did you see signs? Like the same thing with like Vicki and Don, like, were you shocked? I mean, you must have seen that Simon wasn't a great husband. I mean, I know that was like right before the season you were on, but like, did you know Tamra before the show, like when she was with Simon?
I met Tamra when she was with Simon. I actually met her because I was with Alexis when they did their like final barbecue is what they call it. And it was like the last, you know, night of filming or whatever. And she was with Simon and I think that was when they got in a big fight and she told him in the limo that she wanted a divorce, but she wasn't really serious yet. I mean, she kind of just said it. She didn't really know that she was really going to do it. So I didn't really know them, but I knew him and I always thought he was a really nice guy. I mean, he always, you know, seemed like a great guy. So I didn't really know their relationship. But then when I got on the show, Tamra was, you know, so sweet and kind of took me under her wing and was like, hey, I'm here for you. Like, if you have any questions about your contract or you need help with anything or this, that, the other. And so we became like besties. But then when we were going into season 7 and I was telling her a lot of like my concerns and fears about, you know, what they were going to try to make the whole, you know, season 7 about and this, that, and the other, then, you know, I thought I was telling her in confidence and then I found out she was going and telling production stuff. And so when I realized, okay, she's not really my real friend. And so that's, I kind of pulled back from the friendship. And so we never ever had like a falling out per se or any kind of fight or anything like that. When I quit, I was kind of like, see ya, hasta la vista, everybody. And I kind of just backed away from everybody because I felt like I can't trust any of y'all. And, I didn't grow up with y'all. Like, you're not my real friends,
That makes sense.
Now that I'm not on there, like I'm friends, like I'm friendly with Vicki and I'm good friends with, Gretchen, and I'm great friends with Lynn. I mean, Lynn and I talk like almost every day and see each other all the time. And I'm great, I'm great friends with Lizzie and I love Lydia and, even Peggy. I talk to Peggy every now and then. And I'm good friends with Lauri, Peterson, and, I've become good friends with some of the girls in other franchises. So it's a fun thing. I think the nice thing about it is kind of like, a sorority, we've all been in this together, and whether you're on or you're not on, you're all still part of that sorority and you're always going to be. And in, who knows, in the next couple of years or another 5 years, another 10 years, when the whole franchise is possibly done, I think we all still have that, like, hey, we were all part of something together and we're all going to have that, keep connected,
I would agree with that. So really, it sounds like well, first of all, when you were on the show, it sounds like the main crux of your drama, not just on the show, but off the show, it really just all stems back to Alexis. Like, you didn't really have any issues with any of the other girls, like in real life or what we saw on the show. I mean, not really on the show, but like just off the show, you didn't really have any issues with any of them except Alexis.
No, But it was also a smaller cast back then. It was just, it was Tamra, Vicki, myself, Alexis, and Gretchen, and that was it. And then
right.
Going into season 7, they brought on Heather, and I was good friends with Sarah, who had messed with Heather's cake. I actually was the one that brought her on, trying to get her on as a full-time housewife. But I ended up quitting, and then she was breaking up with her guy that she was with, so they ended up just kind of making her a friend. So that was, I think, season 7 was the start of trying to get like a bigger cast. And I think, but Orange County has always stayed smaller. Like, I think, last year, I think, 6 girls. So Orange County has traditionally stayed smaller, whereas New York, I think they're up to like 8 or 9 girls, and Beverly Hills, like 8 or 9.
Yeah, like New York and Beverly Hills has always like 6 or 7, like pretty much. Orange County has stayed small. Do you know Heather in real life, Dubrow?
I do know Heather because she came on season 7, so I filmed with her.
Right.
But I'm not friends with her. Okay. I know her husband. I actually had interviewed her, so to speak. Like, I went in and met with her husband before they were ever on the show. So during season 6, I had my breast redone, and he was one of the doctors that I considered. But this is kind of a funny story, because when I went in to have the consultation, he was so all about the cameras that I was like, I don't know if I'd want this guy to do my boobs, because he's like so about the cameras. And so then when we were leaving, he came running out front, and he was like, hey, can I get your guys' card to production? And he was like, I want to pitch a show to you guys with my wife and her friends. And it was like, I think something to do with a restaurant show or something. And they were like, and then the story goes, I wasn't there, but the story goes that he did contact them, and they were like, well, we're not interested in that, but why doesn't your wife try out for Housewives? And that's how she came on the next season 7.
Oh, wow. So really, you going to Terry for a consultation on your breast is kind of what's responsible for Heather Dubrow being on the show?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would just say that me going there, got into production to where, he then got, met with them. And then when they said that, hey, why don't you have her, meet us about Housewives, but then somebody else had told me, no, she had tried out before that. So I don't really know. I just know that, when I was there, when I was there at his office, that he had wanted their number. But, good for him, because now he's got his own show. They have a couple shows, and, he's doing great. So.
Seriously. And he was also on The Swan. I don't know if you ever watched that show. It was prior to Housewives.
I did. It was like a long, long time ago. And it was, before Housewives, I think, came about, or maybe Housewives.
The best show ever. Let me just tell you. It was so good. But what was I going to say? Yes, now Terry has bought, so that's good. I mean, Yeah, the rumor is, not that I'm trying to start trouble, but the rumor is that Heather was not necessarily during season 7, but a complete pain in the ass to production throughout her tenure on the Housewives. That's just what's out there.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience with her because I ended up, quitting and leaving that season. But my short time with her, I felt, I didn't feel like that I would be super close to her because I felt like she, in my opinion, she was just very like, I'm the shit and, that's all that there is. And I'm just so not like that. I mean, my kids grew up driving in a Bentley, but I don't act any different to anybody. And I make my kids go shop at Target. So, like I remember I was on a talk show and the guy's like, you are so down to earth. And like you have all these nice things and this and that. I'm like, cause why do things define who you are? They don't. And
right.
So I felt like, it's like, and because your husband's a doctor, how does that define you? Like that shouldn't matter, So
right.
That was just my experience. Who knows, maybe if I would have stayed on and, who knows, maybe I'd see another side to her because I know she and, Tamra became best friends and she obviously felt like there was something there. And, watching some of her things, I feel like, she's funny and witty and, this, that, and the other. But my experience, just my own experience was that she, she just was very, like, felt like she was the princess of the castle.
And that was the first season, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, put it this way, the night that we were all first meeting her, she came, Tamra and I were filming some footage by ourselves, and she was going to be meeting us at Tamra's house to jump in the limo with us, and then we were all going to go to Vicky's house. And when she got there, the driver came to the door and just said, "Oh, Heather's here. She said she'll be waiting for you guys in the limo." And I was like, and Tamra and I both were like, what? Like, wow, okay. Like, this is the new girl. If it were me, I would, of course, go in and have a glass of wine with the girls and want to meet them and get to know them.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was, kind of interesting. Like, okay, you just arrived to go with us to a party, but you're too good to come into the house. Like, you're going to sit in the car. Like, that was weird. But so who knows?
That is weird. But you never saw her being like extremely difficult to production or anything like that.
No, because I left. So, I
Right.
only filmed with her at Vicky's party, and then after that I left the show. So but
Right.
I have heard the same thing, and I could see that being very real.
Yeah. I could kind of see that being real. And it sounds like, so other than, Heather, and I mean, it sounds like you really speak to almost everyone that you were on with, even people since then or prior to you, other than, I mean, I guess Heather and Alexis.
Well, yeah,
I
I speak to Vicki and Gretchen, who I was on with. I don't speak to Alexis, and I don't speak to Tamra. But then I speak to a lot of the girls that came on after me, like, the other Peggy and Lydia and Lauri, and, I love Gina. I speak to Gina. I was trying to get her involved in the first Ex-Housewives, but she wasn't available for that. So hopefully she'll come on for another one.
She's
but
great
yeah,
too.
She is. I'm sure you heard about her grandson. It's so horrible.
I know. That is horrible. It's funny because I was talking to her about coming on here and like we were, but I've obviously dropped that for the time being, but it's horrible what happened to Kara. I just heard about it. And then, and you also know Kelly Dodd?
Yep, I know Kelly. She, because I think she came on the same season as, Peggy. So, the season that I was thinking about coming back. And then we had met, well, we knew, it's so funny because we had a lot of the same friends in Newport, but didn't really know each other or hang out that often, but we'd see each other, run into each other. But then when, she got on the show, then I would spend, I think one night we went over there when she was still with Michael, and Gretchen and Slade came over, and it was like the 6 of us, and had like a barbecue or whatever. But I haven't seen her in a while, but, I'll text her here and there. And she, I think she's definitely a good addition to the show because she speaks her mind, and she definitely keeps it interesting and fun.
And what about Shannon Beador? Do you know her?
I know Shannon. I'm not friends with her, but I know her. And we've got some mutual friends, just Newport friends that, they're not on the show, but we have mutual friends. I like Shannon. She's funny. I thought that, she liked me, but then I was like, oh, maybe she doesn't. So the season that I was considering coming back and doing some stuff, season 12, or right before that, we were at a Bravo party, and I liked tequila, and had definitely had a few shots of tequila. And I had met David for the first time. She was still with David at this time. And I walked up to him and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, David, well, I don't know you. I go, but I know you. I go, you're the one that cheated on your wife. Or I said something like that, and not trying to say it like being a bitch. It just came out. I was just like, oh, you're the one. And my husband's like, oh my God, did you really just say that? I go, no, I didn't mean it like that. I go, I meant well, that was your storyline. So I just remember you like that. And he goes, hey, it's the truth. Yeah, that's me. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I would go, well, nice to meet you. And so then I ran over to Shannon and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I just went up to your husband and I said this. And she's like, good, he deserves it. And, you're hilarious. I love you. And, we need to hang out. And we're both Aries. And so she gave me her number. And then I texted her the next day and I was like, hey, it was, nice to meet you last night and hang out and get to know you. And I'm so sorry again. And then she never responded. And then a week later, I'm filming something with all of them. And somebody had said to me oh, she said that she's angry you're here and doesn't want you around or something. And I was like, oh my God, I said something to the husband, jokingly and kind of being funny. And I was drunk. I didn't mean it to come out that way. So I don't know her that well, but apparently she didn't like that I said that.
And she wanted to have you removed from whatever party that was.
Although, well, I don't think it went to that extent. Just was not happy I was there. But I would say, although now she probably could care less because now she's divorced and has a boyfriend and is happy and, so great, so good for her. But I just haven't run into her since then. So.
Interesting. And then right before we wrap up, what about Bronwyn? Do you know her?
I've never met her. No. But I feel like somebody commented on something and said, oh, that reminds me of Peggy or something. And so then I commented. So we've had a few interactions on social media, but I have not met her.
She's nice. She's down to earth and real, at least from the times I've met her. We have a really good mutual friend. I have a really good friend in New York. That's one of her really good friends. So that's kind of how I know her. But she seems cool. And then are you shocked about, after all these years about, Tamra and really Vicki? I mean, the OG is gone. The only real OG that was left. Are you shocked that they're not there anymore?
No, I think Lynn and I were on, and Lizzie and I were as well. We went on there on Jeff Lewis to promote the Ex-Housewives Uncensored. And he asked us the same thing. I'm not surprised. I actually thought that it might happen sooner because I think that when a franchise goes so long, you naturally just start changing things up.
Yeah.
But I guess I was more surprised that how it all went down, the fact that last year Vicki came on as a friend. And, I think I was more surprised, gosh, why would she even do that? And I think Tamra even said that, but then again, you go back to the money. It's well, if they're going to pay you to be a friend, and it's a good amount, why not, But then totally. I think what they did this year to then not even, just be oh, you're done. That was kind of a shitty way to do it. But I think ultimately, so. I think it might be good for the franchise. I mean, who knows? We'll see because, yes, the two of them were the OGs. More specifically, Vicki is the OG, but both of them were kind of the OGs of Orange County. So it'll be interesting to see if it does affect the franchise. I feel like it might be a good thing because it brings in new people, new storylines, but then it could really backfire because if you look at most of the other franchises, they still have their OGs. Teresa's still, she's the OG of New Jersey. They've still got Kyle on Beverly Hills, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think so, and I wonder. Do you think that? Right. I agree with that, and do you think that? And there's also the rumor that that Andy's interested in Tamra to come back after this season when she skips, she's not on this season, but like the next season. But who knows if that's really true. And I wonder if
I heard that.
Yeah, right?
To me, that wouldn't make sense. I mean, to me, it's like, if you're going to, bring her back, then why didn't you bring her back this year? And, I know that they offered the three episodes, and that was her choice to say, no, I don't want the 3. But then why would you bring her back full time next year? That wouldn't make sense to me.
Yeah, completely. And then I guess, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say? Anything you feel like you didn't get off your chest? Anything you want to promote we didn't talk about? I want to give you the chance if I have not covered something.
I think, as far as there, nothing really to get off the chest. I mean, it's for me, I'm, I don't regret anything, and I'm happy I had the opportunity, and I've done a lot of things with it, and from it. So, and I don't really have, like I said, any issues with any of the women. And, as far as, what I'm doing now, I'm still doing my hosting and, working on, more opportunities in the future with the Ex-Housewives Uncensored. And I've got a fitness DVD that I came out with a few years ago, and that's still available on Amazon, where you work out with your toddler, and you don't. What's that?
I saw that. I saw that's linked through your Instagram also.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a child. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a workout with your kid. No, I mean, my kids are too old now for me to hold them, but it's, it's something you can hold a dog. You can use weights, but it's just a really good 30-minute total body workout. And then at the end we do yoga, which is always great for stretching and breathing. But yeah, other than that, we're just trying to stay sane over here with this quarantine. My kids are doing the online school, and that's been challenging. And, like we heard earlier, you get interrupted, and so things can be a little challenging, and just trying to keep them, motivated. And so other than that, I'm just looking forward to this all ending soon and everyone kind of going back to normal. And I've been doing a lot of, celebrity influencer marketing campaigns with various companies online. So that's been really fun, and want to continue that. And yeah, and then we'll see. I still would like to bring one of the shows, because I have written quite a few shows, bring it to life, but I just have to be the right fit. And it,
right.
It may now, and the way that everything's going in the future, it may be better to, do something as a Netflix type of show, or something that's, that people can just download. So we'll see.
That's good. You're busy. And where can we all find you online? On Instagram, right? It's probably the best place.
Instagram, I'm OC Peggy Tanous, which everyone begged me for years to do Instagram. I kept fighting it, saying, no, I'm not going to bother. And now I'm like, why did I not do this years ago? So I've only been on there probably.
Now I'm addicted.
Yeah, I'm like, I should have done this a long time ago, but I was so wrapped up in Twitter, Facebook, thinking those were the ways. So I'm Peggy Tanous on Facebook, and then OC Peggy Tanous on Instagram, and Peggy Tanous on Twitter.
Awesome. And I'll DM you about some of my ideas too, because I have ideas for Celebrity Housewives, ex-Celebrity Housewives. Not that you want my ideas, but that's great. And I also want to hang out with you when I come, because I'm coming probably in July. So if you're around, you need to hang out with me and Lynn.
For sure. Yeah, that would be great.
It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we will get to do so. And I really appreciate you doing this. I know you have your children at home. You're busy. So I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry we couldn't do the same thing, but
it all worked out. That you actually sound really good. I know, like the challenges of technology during this time, but this is great. I really appreciate it. I can't wait, for everyone to hear more about you. And I feel like you were great on the show. Maybe one day we'll see you back on OC. Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
You never know. I always say never, but it probably would be just, it would be in a very mild capacity.
Right, exactly. Awesome. All right, thank you so much. And I will be in touch, and reach out to me too if you need anything.
Thank you. And everyone, stay safe.
You too. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. All right. Thanks, David. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to yet another episode of Behind the Velvet Rope. Because without you listeners, I would just be a crazy person with voices in my head. And if you like what you hear, subscribe on Apple Podcasts under Behind the Velvet Rope. And when you're done subscribing, feel free to leave a 5-star write-up review, because the write-up reviews actually count. We read each and every one of them. We post the best ones, and the reviews really help our shows keep going, and we really appreciate everything you guys say, especially the positive ones. And if you want to find us online, we're at Behind Velvet Rope on Instagram. We are at David Yontef on Instagram. We're Behind the Velvet Rope on Apple Podcasts. Or head on over to Patreon, because you know what? There are just some things we can't talk about here. So for our bonus episodes, go to Patreon and type in Behind the Velvet Rope. And if you still aren't sick of me and you want more David, go to Cameo and book me on Cameo. And you can ask me anything there. I'll answer whatever you want. And I have a bargain basement price of $10. Thank you guys. See you soon.